Hi, my name's Breanna and this is my video recording for EDN114 Thinking Mathematically Digital Technology assignment. In this video, I will be discussing my answers to the 4 questions in the assignment and explaining how the use of the digital technology geoboard can expand students' learning. Question 1 asks us to identify and briefly describe some aspects of the Australian Mathematic ACM where the use of the digital technology can expand curriculum learning opportunities. I got both of these content descriptors from the School Curriculum and Standards Authority SCASA under the Western Australian section. I have chosen one from the Year 2 curriculum and the Year 6 curriculum. The one from the Year 2 curriculum says, describe and draw two-dimensional shapes with and without digital technologies. The elaboration states, identifying key features of squares, rectangles, triangles, kites, rhombuses and circles, such as straight lines or curved lines, and counting the edges and corners. Year 6 mathematics curriculum states, investigate with and without digital technologies, angles on a straight line, angles at a point and vertically opposite angles. Use results to find unknown angles. The elaboration state, identifying the sides of a right angle as 90 degrees and defining acute, obtuse, straight and reflex angles, as well as measuring, estimating and comparing angles in degrees and classifying angles according to their size. I chose these 2 content descriptors because they are under the same content strand, which is measurement and geometry. And although they're under the same content strand, the Year 2 content descriptor focuses on shapes and the Year 6 content descriptor focuses on angles. So although they are in the same content strand, they focus on different sections of the content. Question 2 asks us to describe at least 2 examples of learning opportunities for which the use of digital technology can play an important role in facilitating students' learning of mathematics more effectively. For the Year 2 mathematics curriculum content descriptor I have designed a lesson focused on the geoboard and a task sheet. So I've inserted 2 screenshots of the task sheet I designed and a screenshot of the geoboard outline. This lesson gives the students a list of tasks they must complete with the technology. This list of tasks will begin by asking the students to select the white coloured bands and use them to create a square on the grid, keeping in mind that these students are still young. They may need a tutorial on how to use the geoboard. However, by giving the students the geoboard and letting them explore it a bit helps them learn and facilitate their learning in digital technologies, and it deepens and makes it more effective if they're doing it themselves. This lesson completes and focuses on the elaboration of getting the students to identify the shapes and is able to demonstrate that they identify these shapes because they are having to draw them themselves, which is using digital technology. The learning opportunities for this lesson is by the end of the lesson, the students will expand their knowledge of different digital technology in this regard to digital into the geoboard, understand how to use the geoboard, identify and discuss the characteristics of a square, triangle, rectangle, rhombus and kite, and identify the edges and corners of different shapes. So this completes the elaborations of the content descriptor. For the Year 6 lesson, I also chose a task sheet. Instead, for this lesson, the students will be given a geoboard that has some already drawn up angles for them, and they will be asked to measure the angles and be able to match the angles to the correct labels. The lesson will then go on to ask the students to create their own angles and get a friend to describe, identify, and classify it by its characteristics, as well as measuring the already given angles for their reflex angle and be able to define what a reflex angle is. The learning objectives for this lesson is by the end of the lesson, the students will again expand their knowledge of different digital technologies, which is the geoboard, understand how to use the geoboard, identify a right, obtuse, straight, and acute angle, understand what characteristics define different angles, and interpret what a reflex angle is and how to calculate it for different types of angles. So by completing this lesson, the students will complete the learning objectives, which is also described in the elaborations. I will now demonstrate how the students would complete the Year 2 lesson on the geoboard. So I have my geoboard that's come up and my list of my task sheet. What's great about the geoboard is that the students are given a square geoboard, but they can change it to a rectangle or a circle, which you could also involve in your learning of the shapes. The first task asks us to select the white coloured bands and to create a square. It then goes on to ask us to create different shapes, but we're going to focus on the square at the moment. What's great about the geoboard is that you can also add in lines to it to make it easier for the students to see more visibly, and you can add in numbers as well. So you could use it at a later year for graphing, etc. It goes on to ask the students how many edges does the square have. The great part about this is although the students could count them in their head, they could also select either the text button and write in their answer, or they could select the drawing button and they could draw in and label each side themselves. This is great for the students who find it harder to remember things. So by visually getting to draw it, it's easier for them to remember and gets them to save time. They could also use it to label each shape. So they could say this is label 1, shape 1, etc. And if they were to accidentally draw and make a mistake, all they would have to do is press the erase button, just like this. And if they accidentally placed an elastic band on the board they didn't want, all they have to do is press the rubbish. So for the Year 6 lesson, I have inserted some screenshots of what the lesson would look like. So I have included the task sheet, which has been completed. So it asks the students to measure the different angles and then match up the different angles, so the white angle, the yellow angle, etc., with what they think the shape is. So they think the white angle is a right angle, etc. It then goes on to ask the students to create their own separate angles and to give it to a friend to test them. This helps the students be more creative and expand their knowledge themselves. Question 4. Briefly discuss your personal stance on such a use of technology. The praise for this technology is it allows the students to expand their technological knowledge in a mathematics environment in an ever-growing technology-reliant world. As we've seen during COVID, a lot of our learning has been focused online. So in the future, learning will just be further online, and it would be good for students at a younger age, such as Year 2, to learn how to use technology. Another pro is it can be used in lower and higher primary years to improve mathematical understanding, as I have represented in a Year 2 lesson and a Year 6 lesson. It helps students who learn by doing better and understand better than a completely paper and pen lesson. So by the students being able to do something more hands-on, might help them learn a bit better than paper and pen. Students are also more inclined to be actively involved in the lesson because it uses technology. I've included a quote by Brian Host in 2019. He states, "With technology tools and a project learning approach, students are more likely to stay engaged and on task, reducing behavioural problems in the classroom." The cons of this technology is that technology is not 100% reliable. If the internet's down one day, you would have to change your lesson to one that doesn't involve technology. Another con is that you cannot draw circles on the geoboard, so you would not be able to completely fit the content descriptor. Another con is students could be easily off task and play games on their computers, as well as the two lessons could not be used as introduction lessons as easily as refresher lessons. Thank you for listening.